Hello, and welcome to another episode of Glorious Life on Wheels. I get so many comments from people, especially seniors, talking about how they're going to be forced to move into a van or a vehicle. So today I thought I would do a video talking about ways you can live in a van or a vehicle for under $900 a month. Now there are some specific things you have to do and some things you need to avoid doing, but I'm going to share those things, and hopefully this will be helpful to those of you who are either being forced to move into a vehicle or are seriously considering it. I'm also going to share some facts about cost of living and the cost of different essentials based on where you live in this country. And this is whether you're living in a sticks and bricks or whether you're living van life. So come on, let's get started, and I'm going to share this important information with you. A viewer recently left a comment on one of my videos, and in that comment they stated that they thought van life and living in a vehicle could actually be a whole lot more expensive than living in an apartment because of the cost of maintenance for your vehicle and a number of other things. That could be very true, especially if you're starting out and don't understand what some of your highest costs could be and how to contain them. Other than a vehicle payment, if you have one, the three highest expenses I have found for van dwellers or people living in vehicles are your cost of gasoline, your cost of food, and your cost of vehicle insurance. And believe it or not, those three expenses, how much you pay for them, is very, very closely connected to where you're living and where you reside in your vehicle. Let me just say this, it is so much less expensive and more economical if you're a van dweller to stay in one general area. If you're just traveling a few miles each day, going, say, from the place that you're sleeping overnight in your vehicle to maybe a park or the library or a senior citizen center or somewhere else during the day, and then traveling back to one of a couple different locations within a short distance, it is so much less expensive. If you're traveling across the country and you're going from state to state, or if you're even going from, say, Southern California all the way up to the tip of Northern California, and you're traveling a lot, you're going to spend a lot of money on gas. Let me just give you an example of how much more it will cost you to pay for gasoline each month based on where you're traveling or where you're living. The cost of gasoline right now per gallon on average in California is $4.81. The cost in Arizona is $3.33, and Texas and Tennessee $2.71 and $2.81. So let's say you have an 18-gallon tank and you fill up 2.5 times a month. That's 45 gallons. The difference between traveling and living in California for 45 gallons at $4.81 and living and traveling in Tennessee or Texas is approximately $2 per gallon. So at 45 gallons, you're spending about $90 more per month. And that's only if you fill up 2.5 times per month. Now, if you're traveling extensively, like a lot of people do when they first start out, they're traveling like they're on vacation instead of like this is their life, you're going to spend a whole lot more. And if you're traveling in one of these states that has expensive gas, I mean, your gasoline bill could be $500-600 in any given month. Let's look at one of your other large expenses, and that's food. Based on my research, and I'm guessing this is based on shopping at regular grocery stores like Safeway or Ralph's or something like that. My research found that the average monthly grocery bill for a single person living in California is $370 per month. In Arizona, it's $279, Texas $280, and Tennessee $251. Now, I would be able to do it for a lot less than that because I go to grocery outlet and I do a lot of shopping sales. But let's just say you're paying in California $370 versus Tennessee $251. That's $120 more a month based on where you're living. So if you add that $120 more a month plus the $90 more for gasoline, that's what, $210 or something a month more already? You're already paying over $200 a month just on these two things based on where you live. There's one other thing that really adds to your food budget and your food cost monthly, and that is eating out. Even grabbing a breakfast sandwich 2 or 3 times a week, that's $5 or $10 a week. That could add up to $40. Or just getting a meal. You can't even get a meal at McDonald's for less than $10 now, I don't think. And getting a cup of coffee. Maybe you're not even getting Starbucks for $4 or $5 a cup. Maybe you're going to a donut shop, or you're going to AM/PM or an Arco station. It's even $2 or $2.70 or something there. So if you add up $2.70 every day for a cup of coffee times 30 days, that really adds up over a month. So if you want to live frugally in your van, you really need to focus on cooking most of your meals, if not all of your meals, and cutting out on the little budget busters, like just grabbing a snack here, grabbing a cup of coffee here, and do it in your van, in your vehicle. Another thing to consider about where you live is that the cost of vehicle insurance can be more based on the state you live in. There are some states that have higher insurance rates, and some of those states include, but are not limited to, Louisiana, Florida, Kentucky, California, Nevada, Michigan, New York, and Delaware. It was interesting, some of the information that I found out when I was researching this. Louisiana apparently has a lot of fraud, insurance fraud, is what I read in one report. So that's why it said that Louisiana was one of the reasons Louisiana had higher vehicle insurance. Kentucky, apparently, according to one report I read, has a high level of vehicle theft. So that's another reason for high insurance. Also, there are 12 states that have no fault for insurance, for vehicle insurance. What that means is if you're in an accident or something, you don't file a claim against the other person's insurance company, you file it against your own. So that could cause your insurance to go up. And Louisiana allows that state, the insurers, to use credit scores. So if you have a low credit score, you could very well pay more for insurance in Louisiana. Also in Florida, there are reportedly a lot of uninsured motorists, which adds to the cost of insurance there for vehicles. In addition, based on severe weather, both there and in California, a lot of insurers in some of these states are no longer writing new policies. So you have to go to outside sources, and it can be very expensive. So these are things that you need to know and consider, because where you have your vehicle insured as your state of residence could make a huge difference in how much you pay for that vehicle insurance. Other major considerations to keep down your costs and maintain a low overhead on a monthly basis if you're a van dweller is what type of vehicle you're going to use, what the age of the vehicle is, and how big the vehicle is. It's going to cost a whole lot more if you're living in a Sprinter, likely. Because even if it's an older Sprinter, it's going to likely cost more to get it serviced than if you're living in, say, a Dodge or a Chevy. And less, or fewer people rather, will be able to service a Mercedes. And the parts are going to be more expensive, and they may even be harder to get coming up. The second thing is the age of the vehicle. If you're living in a 20 or 30-year-old vehicle, you're going to have more maintenance. You're going to really have to baby that puppy to make it last. So it might be more expensive on the front end to buy a newer vehicle, but less expensive overall in terms of maintenance. The third thing, the size of the vehicle, that's going to make a big difference on where you can park it. If you have a huge Class A or a big Class C versus a minivan or a small SUV or even a car, your parking options are going to be limited. And that's going to add to your expense because you're not going to be able to boondock as often. You're going to also, depending on the type of vehicle you have, you may have to empty black tanks or gray tanks. So these are things to consider that will add tremendously to your monthly overhead. Speaking of parking, that's another huge consideration, and that's something you need to look into before you start van life, if that's something you're planning to do, because parking is a huge expense if you're not going to boondock. If you are going to boondock, that is parking for free without amenities, you need to make sure and check out the areas that you're planning to do that in and make sure that they allow you to do that and that there are places that you can park and that they're not hostile to RVers or van life folk, because tickets at $50 and $80 a night can truly add up. Also, even inexpensive, what's considered inexpensive now, campgrounds typically start at a very minimum of $20 a night to $40. A mid-range is $40 up to maybe even $70 or $80 per night. And for extended stays, it can be anywhere from $120 a week at an RV park to over $1,000 a month. I met someone yesterday, a young woman, and we were talking, and she lives in Oceanside temporarily. Her and her boyfriend are living in Oceanside, and they're at an RV park there. They're paying $2,100 a month to park their cargo van at an RV park in Oceanside. So it is not cheap. So you need to consider that, know where you're planning on parking, having something already set up, or knowing in advance, scoping it out is really, really critical to make sure you can stay within your budget. Now, as promised, I'm going to give you the breakdown of a budget that comes in just under $900 a month if you're living in a van. Rent, of course, is zero because you're saving that. Depending on where you're living, you're saving over $2,000 a month. Food is $240. I believe that you really can do it for $240. I could do it for $240 even in California for a single person. Gas is $160. Auto insurance is $150. And everyone doesn't have full coverage. A lot of people do. But if you have a high deductible and have some other adjustments, I think $150, depending on where you live, you could manage for auto insurance per month. Medicare is $185. Now, everyone isn't 65 or older, so those who are under 65 and aren't paying for Medicare would save that $185. Phone is $70. Some people have less for their phone. Laundry is $18. A gym membership, $24, because you're going to need it for showers. Also, butane, $24 for cooking, or propane, and mail service, $25. That budget comes up to $896 per month. Although I didn't add it in the budget, if you have the means to do it, if you do not have an emergency fund, I strongly, strongly urge you to add $50 a month. That's a minimal amount, but to add that to savings to try and get some kind of emergency fund set up. Also, you have to have some entertainment. I know you can go to the library, there are free concerts, in the park, there's other things, but every once in a while you want to do something a little fun. So if you can manage to squeeze out an extra $50 a month just for miscellaneous, for things that might come up that you want to do just to treat yourself so that you don't feel totally deprived, I would suggest doing that, which would add another $100. But I'm giving you the bare minimum. And again, like I said, in some places you could do less for your auto insurance, especially if you're not having full coverage. So if you can shave off enough for a little for your miscellaneous fund and for your emergency fund, I would strongly urge you to do that. I'm not telling people that you need to or should go live in a van. I'm just providing some information should that be an option that you're considering or even forced into doing. Also, it doesn't have to be permanent. I recently interviewed, well, actually it's been a few months now, I interviewed Beth from Clouds and Sky YouTube channel, and she was forced, based on finances, to move into her small SUV for I think it was around 5 months or so. And when I interviewed her, she shared that she was able to, by that 5 months living in that vehicle, she was able to pay off her vehicle. She was also able to pay down her credit cards, which she had to use for living expenses, and was looking at having them fully paid off in June. And I recently saw a video on her channel where, based on the savings from different things that she was able to do during that time in her van, she now has been able to move into a studio apartment. So van life could be a temporary thing for you to get your finances in order, to maybe pay off some bills, to save some money, so that when you go back into an apartment, you'll have more discretionary income because you've paid off bills, and it'll allow you to be able to pay the rent. So this is just an option and just some information, and I hope it's helpful. If you are considering this and this video was helpful, give me a thumbs up, would you, to help me be able to continue bringing you great content. And I'd love to hear in the comments what you think of this video, if it was helpful, and if you'd like more videos talking about finances for van life or finances even not for van life. All right, I will see you next time. May your journeys be filled with joy and blessings in abundance, and come join us on our lives, Glow Lives, every Saturday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and it is a wonderful group of people and very supportive and loving. I hope to see you there. All right, till next time.